Welcome back, this is part 6 of what happened to the Alien and Predator series. After Aliens, who wasn't looking forward to another sequel to one of the best action movies ever made? So when we heard Alien 3 was coming, we got pumped. But unfortunately, the film left people with mixed feelings. But before I tell you about the movie, I feel I have to say something about how the film came into being. Alien 3 had an extremely troubled production. During the film's writing stages and production, the script went through an obscene amount of rewrites, and writers at that. The first script was written by William Gibson, and was supposed to be about the Weyland-Yutani Corporation facing off against military socialists called the Union of Progressive People, who live in a separate society from Earth. The film took place on a space station, and the aliens admitted an airborne virus that would actually transform people it infected into aliens. The film starred Hicks and Bishop as the leads, while Ripley spent the majority of the film in a coma. The idea was scrapped when the producers decided they didn't like the screenplay, so Gibson was fired and replaced with Eric Red. So Red rewrote the script to be about the inhabitants of a small city biodome space station that somehow got invaded by the aliens, who this time could not only infect humans, but also technology. So by the end of the movie, the entire space station itself would get transformed into a giant alien. Well, that idea quickly got shit-canned, thank God, and the script was rewritten again, this time by David Twohy, the future director of Pitch Black. He wrote a script about a prison planet where the prisoners were being used for illegal experiments with the aliens. But this script was rewritten again by Vincent Ward, who made the movie about Ripley landing on a wooden planet inhabited by monks. And this just went on and on and on, as these were just some of the many proposed ideas that were being thrown around for the movie. Others included set in the movie on Earth with Ripley, Hicks and Newt as a family, set in the movie on a prison spaceship, making versions of the movie without Ripley, making versions of the movie without the aliens, and even set in the movie on the alien homeworld. The rewrites ended up going on for so long that eventually the film just started production without a script, which is probably the most insane filmmaking decision I've ever heard. Sets began construction to the specifications that they would represent the wooden planet monk idea, but the script was rewritten again to take place on a prison planet, so the sets had to be torn down and built again. The film also went through a shit ton of directors. Ridley Scott, Rennie Harlan, Vincent Ward, and even the producer Walter Hill were all at some point attached to direct, before the film finally settled on David Fincher. And though Fincher would go on to create such great films as Seven, Fight Club, Zodiac, and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Alien 3 was his first film. Then, as if starting a film with no script, half-built sets, and a newbie director wasn't already messed up enough, the studio demanded that the scripts were to be written by Fincher during shooting, and were to be written so that they incorporated the existing sets in order to justify their creation. Reshoots and rewrites happened consistently throughout the film's production, and when it finally came around to editing this jumbled mess, the studio ordered that radical edits and reshoots take place in order to shorten the film's runtime by 30 minutes, therefore removing entire subplots out of the film, leaving gaping plot holes behind. Because of his horrible experience working on the project, David Fincher has since ended up disowning the film and going as far to pretty much refuse to acknowledge the film's existence. So, after this outright clusterfuck of a development process, it's nothing short of a miracle that in 1992, anything remotely close to being a watchable film came out at the end. Alien 3 starts immediately from where Aliens left off, with the survivors of the last film, Ripley, Hicks, Newt, and the android Bishop, all in cryosleep on the ship the Sulaco returning to Earth. But an alien facehugger has managed to sneak aboard the ship and ends up causing a fire when it infects one of the passengers. The ship's escape pod is automatically launched and crash lands on the planet Fury 161 near a lead refinery turned maximum security prison. The inmates of the prison recover the escape pod and discover that Ripley is the only survivor of the crash. There is, of course, one other survivor. As the alien starts to hunt down the weaponless populace, Ripley and the prisoners are forced to band together in order to survive. Alien 3 has a lot of flaws. Right from the start of the film, Hicks and Newt are unceremoniously killed off before they even have a chance for a second screen time. Bishop survives the crash, but is then disconnected shortly later because he is hopelessly smashed beyond repair. This is a real low blow to anyone who was rooting for these characters to survive in the last film. We invested so much emotion in these characters, and now they're just being thrown away without even getting a word of dialogue. Another issue with the film is that many of the characters are undeveloped. There are 25 members of the prison in the film, and yet only about 6 of them actually have any decent screen time. And the fact that they're all shaved bald, all wear black and grey clothes, and all have Cockney accents doesn't make it easy to distinguish one from another. Alien 3 is also easily the darkest and most violent film in the series. The death scenes in the film are particularly brutal and disturbing. Oh, Jesus, I didn't need to see that. Well, now after saying all that, you probably think I hate this movie, don't you? Well, on the contrary, I love this movie. I think it's fantastic. I think it's just as good as the first 2 Alien films. This film is criminally underrated and it gets a really bad rap that it does not deserve. For everything this movie does wrong, it does far more right. First things first, I have to mention that if you're going to watch this movie, you must watch the assembly cut. The assembly cut restores the film to how it was before the studio came along and raped the shit out of the movie. The difference between the theatrical version of the film and the assembly cut is incredible. It's hardly even the same film. About 1/3 of the scenes in the film are replaced with longer, more fleshed out and in-depth alternate scenes. I mean, this re-edit is the likes of Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, in terms of how different it is from the original. Alien 3 is easily the most philosophically ambitious film in the series. Such heavy concepts as religion, nihilism, redemption, sacrifice, and even existentialism all play a strong part. All the inmates in the film are scum of the earth types, consisting of thieves, rapists, and murderers, and yet they have all converted to a Christian fundamentalist apocalyptic religion, which they have devout themselves to in an attempt to atone for their sins. They believe in depriving themselves from all evil temptations, and this includes devoting themselves to a life of celibacy. They believe that they have made a deal with God to live forever. All this is thrown into disarray with the arrival of a woman. Their whole belief system is put into question when they are forced to deal with the presence of the woman and the presence of an evil being they cannot understand. They question their religion and even the point of their own existence. When Ripley informs them that the Weyland-Yutani company is trying to capture an alien for their bioweapons division, despite the fact that the creature poses threat to all life in the universe, the inmates come to the conclusion that they must stop the alien by all means, even if it means sacrificing their own lives. As such, despite all the horrible crimes they have committed, they manage to redeem themselves. Ripley can even be interpreted as a Christ figure. She comes to this planet to lead the helpless to salvation, forgiving others for any wrongs they may have done to her, and she ends up sacrificing herself for the sins of others, even forming the crucifix as she dies. The characters in the film really do not get enough credit either. Yes, it's true that many of the characters go underdeveloped, but the ones that do get adequate screen time are really interesting. The prison's medical officer, Clemens, played by Charles Dance for example, plays a very mysterious and ultimately sympathetic part. Or how about Charles Dutton as Dylan, an inmate who acts as the prisoner's makeshift priest and moral leader, despite his former history as a rapist and murderer. The other inmates such as Morse and Golic also have their own interesting character traits, as well as possessing a very dark sense of humour.
What the fuck are you doing? What? Don't hold it like that. Hold it like this. What the fuck? Fucking kill someone, you fucking moron.
I especially like Ralph Brown as Aaron, who got the nickname 8'5" due to his low IQ. He seems to be a nice guy who's just trying to do his job, but he gets nothing but shit from everyone throughout the course of the movie. More importantly, the film also brings Ripley's character arc to a close in a very satisfying way. Ripley is a woman who is being forced to live through a constant nightmare. Ever since the events of the first Alien, everyone Ripley has ever known has died, and everything she has ever had has been lost. Furthermore, Ripley discovers that she is host to a queen chestburster, meaning that not only is she living on borrowed time, but she is carrying the very alien which would produce thousands more, and pose risk to all life in the universe. She confronts the question as to whether it's even worth it to continue fighting on, and by the end of the film, she learns to accept her fate and do what is right. Alien 3 also has a spectacularly dark and moody feel to it. The film is relentlessly, depressingly bleak, instilling the feeling of gloom and tragedy in the viewer. Everything in this movie looks broken down, rusted, grimy, and is filmed from these darkly lit low angles. Just about all the technology presented in the film is woefully obsolete. even by 1992 standards. The music is both haunting and somber, and all the characters in the film are run down, emotionally unstable, broken people. Many viewers have complained that the film is too depressing when compared to the action fantasy that was Aliens. But I disagree. This depressing mood complements the film, because it's a movie about a monster that is running around murdering people. You shouldn't be cheering when you see a character get killed, you should be feeling sorry for them. And that's what this movie does. It makes you feel sympathy for the characters. Yes, it's a downer to see Hicks and Newt unceremoniously killed off at the beginning of the movie, but it helps to set the bleak, unforgiving mood of the film. The film also introduces a new kind of alien. See, in this film, a facehugger impregnated an animal instead of a human, a dog in the theatrical version and an ox in the assembly cut. It turns out that aliens actually take on characteristics of their hosts, and so in this instant we have an alien that runs super fast on all fours like a puma, and displays more aggressive animalistic behaviour. A lot of people have also complained about the scenes where the alien is running, saying that it looks like bad CGI. Well, I have to say that it's not bad CGI, because the fact of the matter is, it's not CGI at all. It's a rod puppet that had its movements acted out in front of a blue screen and then was photochemically superimposed into the film. So it's not bad CGI at all. It's actually awesome rod puppetry. Though I do admit there are some moments where it does look like crap. The creature effects were done by Amalgamated Dynamics, and they would end up doing all the creature effects for the next 3 films as well. The company's founders, Alec Gills and Tom Woodruff, used to be former employees for Stan Winston, but sadly, they're not up to his standard, and the quality of their work seems to decrease as the series goes on. I don't mean to diss them or anything, they seem like nice guys who really put effort into what they do. In fact, Tom Woodruff himself is actually the man inside the alien costume in this film, and all Alien films thereafter. Now that's dedication to your work. Alien 3 also cops a lot of criticism where I feel it does not deserve it. All too many people complain that the film was not an action movie like Aliens, to which I have to assert that the first Alien movie was not an action movie either, and this film is called Alien 3, not Aliens 2. Another thing that bothers people with this film is that at the end of the movie, a man credited as Bishop 2 shows up who looks exactly like the Bishop android, and he claims to be its designer. Many viewers were left confused as to whether this man was really the designer of the Bishop android or was just an android himself. Well, let me clear this up once and for all. Bishop 2 is human. The man says he's human, and then when he's hit on the head with a lead pipe, he bleeds red blood, despite the fact that all androids, both before and after this film, have white blood. Furthermore, in the assembly cut, he yells in pain, "I'm not a droid." As if this in-movie proof wasn't enough, in the DVD's commentary, they say he's human. In the movie's script, it says he's human. Even in the movie's novelization, it says he's human. He's fucking human, okay? So, I feel Alien 3 is a criminally underrated movie. I love this movie. I even liked the theatrical cut. I especially love the assembly cut. This is a good movie, and it cops far more criticism than it deserves. I personally feel that it's on par with the first 2 Alien films. Alien 3 is a fantastic closer to a brilliant trilogy of films. It ends the series and brings Ripley's character arc to a close in a very satisfying, moving way. Well, at least it did end the series. Tune in next week, we're looking at Alien Resurrection.
Who do I have to fuck to get off this boat?
I can get you off. Maybe not the boat, but